meetings from now on. So since we have a quorum, let's go ahead and take care of that committee vote, take care of some business right now, waiting for the others to come in. All in favor of recording all of our public election committee meetings, please say aye.
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 And I vote as well, so we have a vote of 3 of 3. We will record our meetings from now on, and thank you, Michael, for doing that. Okay, to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is a welcome to everybody, which we are doing. Thank you all for coming. And this has been a busy week. I also think it's been a hard week for people with everything that's happening in Israel and all. And I just want to say that I want you all to take good care of yourselves and each other and just, you know, I think this is a week where we all really need to be very kind to each other, thoughtful to each other. And this meeting will be kind and thoughtful as always. But I think it's just been really hard on everybody. Jen, you're at the State Department. I'm sure it's been doubly hard for you with work and all. And, you know, even our little small village is affected. So Nomi was chairing the anti-Semitism task force on Monday night or Tuesday night. And that was a very powerful healing kind of thing to be at. So thank you again, Nomi, for that. All right. Residents' comments, questions, suggestions. Andrew, I think you are a resident. Katie, thank you for being our liaison. Any comments, questions, or suggestions before we roll into the business here? Andrew, anything?
Nothing from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, ready to go? Okay, 8:05. Review our main duties and timetable. As you can see from the agenda, we've done the first. We're in the middle of doing the second. And the next couple of meetings will basically involve finishing up these documents. The 8:10 item, and we're almost back on schedule, is to approve the minutes from our meeting on October 4th. They were in the packet, and I know they got sent to all the committee members. So any changes, any suggestions? Anybody?
Marty, are you going to go through each of the documents or should we just comment?
Say again.
Are you going to go through each of the documents?
Yes, tonight's plan is to review the 5 main, we have 5 main documents, and one of our goals is to try to simplify and consolidate that into one. And I think we're going to go through at least 4 of them. Let's see how much we can get done. Okay.
Okay. I have.
But first, let's do the minute. First, let's do the minutes. Did we all approve the minutes?
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye. Jen?
Aye.
Approve the minutes?
Yep.
Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you for that. The next thing is a little more housekeeping. Michael, where are we on the committee email getting set up?
It is set up. I just have to make sure that I have the password and I can send it to all 5 of you. I just haven't gotten to that yet this week, but it's on my to-do list.
That would be great. If you could do that by Friday, that would be terrific. Or, you know, as soon as you can. I know you've got a ton of other stuff on your plate.
No, Friday.
So next item on
schedule, so no problem.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Next item on this sort of 8:15 housekeeping list is the completion of the OMA Open Meetings Act certificate class. Jen, thank you for being our OMA specialist, and I can't wait to see your official frame certificate.
So
How was the class? Was it okay?
Yeah, I took the class on Sunday. I have the certificate. I don't have it here to show you. So we can either table it till next time, or we can attach it to the election committee meetings as a document so that the public can verify that I met the requirement.
I absolutely believe you did. I trust you. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to sort of post that along with the minutes next time to just, you know, verify that we did that. Thank you again. Then the schedule for the next 2 committee meetings. Let's get that on. Our next meeting is November 1st, but I looked at the calendar And November 15th is the third Wednesday of the month, and I think that's when Paul Weller has his fire board meetings. So I wanted to suggest that we basically understand people are probably going to be traveling over Thanksgiving. And I was going to suggest our next two meetings be the 1st and the 8th in November. And that would be our two meetings in November. And I think we can probably wrap up the documents by the 8th. Does that sound good to people?
Hold on.
I think I'm going to be traveling that week. At the earliest I would be back is the afternoon of the 8th, but from Europe. So I think
jet lag.
The earliest I could really commit to meeting is the 9th. And it would probably be better for me, in all frankness, if we just did it early, like maybe Tuesday instead of Wednesday the following week. But
that's certainly possible. I'm free on that Monday, which is November, let's see, 13th? Monday, November 13th. How does that look for you, Nomi?
November 13th sounds good.
Okay.
So November 1 and 13, 8 p.m. good for people?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Scheduled next meeting is November 1st and 13th. And let's see, next item on the agenda, confirm the format for our committee meetings this year. We talked last time and decided that we would have an open format, a participatory format, where we would allow, in fact, welcome residents' input at times when we, as we deal with each item on the agenda. And I think we should probably have a formal committee vote to do that. That is our format. We agreed to it last time, but could we have a motion to say that our format will be, participatory, and that we will welcome comments during the meeting, not just at the beginning of the end? Someone like to so move?
I so move.
I second.
Okay, Jen moves. Nomi seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
3 for 3. Okay, that takes care of housekeeping. So the item for tonight is really a working session, and I'm hoping that Paul and John will both join us. And I thought the way to go about this was probably to make our life easier by taking it one small bite at a time. And these are preliminary, reviews of these documents. We'll have formal votes on the updated documents on November 1st. But let's take one of the easiest ones first. And I thought that the procedure for the pulling my stacks of paper from my table here. Okay.
Oh, we can't hear you, Marty.
Hello? Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, now we can. I think we lost you for a minute.
Yeah, we lost you right from the easiest one, and then everything you said after that was gone.
Again, thanks for coping with our less than ideal computer tech here. All right, the easiest one I think is the standard procedure for the election forum. It's one page, and Nomi, I think you had the lead in looking this one over. Did you have any changes that leapt out at you?
I have only a tiny bit of change when it comes to the follow-up questions. It has something like all the questions will cover 1 minute, or all the candidates will have 1 minute. I think we want to say each one has 1 minute.
I think that's a good clarification. I'll mark it here on this copy. Each candidate.
Right.
I will have 1 minute for follow-up. Okay.
Right.
And the first round of 2-minute answers from all the candidates, I mean, that could be 90 seconds. I mean, we could be a little flexible there. I think allowing 2 minutes answers from all candidates is reasonable. That's what we used to have back in the day. So is everybody good with the timing on these elements of the question format?
Yeah.
2 minutes for the first round, and if there's a follow-up, 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I could think that we might want to consider here is that the issue of allowing future committees some flexibility about this. And I wouldn't be adverse to adding a number 7 at the bottom that says that, you know, committees shall follow this general framework, but may make such adjustments as they seem necessary, or something like that, just to build in a little flexibility.
Yeah, okay,
It would just be, you know, the committee is authorized to, you know, changes without having to get the council to approve a change. I'll
yeah,
just put a note here, flexibility for committees. Okay. Hi, Paul. Glad you could join us. Thank you. I don't know where John is, but actually, you know, Paul, could you give John Sharrow a call and see where he is? Or maybe you got his number handy? Yeah, if you would, call John Sharrow, remind him. And okay, on the forum procedure, I didn't have anything else on it other than a sort of philosophical question. If you go up to number 3, paragraph 3 on that forum procedure, you'll see there's a line there that says that the residents can ask live questions. And I thought we should just talk about that for a minute. That was the tradition in BMA. People, you know, we had live forums. I mean, there was no Zoom. We did them in the village office, and people could raise their hand and speak up, and often did. And there was no censorship of villagers' questions at the forum. People could ask anything they wanted. Some people asked obnoxious questions, and it was kind of interesting to see how the candidates handled that. You know, I mean, that can be valid information for voters too. And we also had anonymous questions where you could write a question, you know, on a 3x5 card, put it in the basket, and pass it to the front, and the committee would read it. So it was very much an open, very much process like that, where anybody could ask anything. And that's one school of thought, that the voters should be able to ask the candidates anything, even obnoxious questions. That changed in 2021 when the election committee basically eliminated any kind of live questions, and everybody had to send in their questions in advance to the committee, and the committee could, of course, rewrite them or exclude some or whatever it wanted to do. There was no way for the public to know until the forum whether or not they actually got their questions asked. The committee had complete control. So it went from very sort of open democratic, anything can be asked, to the committee really controlling the flow of questions very, very sharply. And last year, the council did change that to say that people could submit anonymous questions, which is really important. Some of the best questions over the years have come in anonymously, and ask live questions. And the way the committee handled the quote live questions last year was not to let people ask questions directly to the candidate by calling on them during the public forum, but allowing people to submit quote live questions by chat. And then the committee could review it last year and decide whether the committee was going to ask that question. So there was still a kind of censorship or control mechanism there, rather than an actual live real-time question. So there's 2 schools of thought here. One is, if you want to have a very polite forum, you probably ought to have the committee screen the questions. If you want to have more of a open democratic, residents can ask it or they want forum, then you go to live questions during the forum. And this is written from the old procedure, can ask live questions. But, you know, what do people think of that? I'm of 2 minds. Nomi, Jen, Paul?
I can add something as a candidate that was in that forum last year. Sorry, Naomi.
Yeah, what did you think?
Well, I was really looking forward to the potential of live questions, but I don't know if they knew how to organize that. One thing I know that didn't maybe work was the picking them out of the hat, because it felt kind of like repetitive, and so one thing I would ask is, like, in the candidate forum, I think, is just, you know, a variety of questions, and then, you know, maybe one's on the budget, maybe one's on you know, community activities, maybe one's on the like, just, you know, and kind of jump around, because I felt like
a little.
Yeah, repeating them. Yeah, but I think a live component would be certainly interesting. I think the issue was it's over Zoom, which is a good thing. So you get a lot of participants to dial in and watch and observe. But the candidates are, from their home. If and you can't tell them to all come in and be at the table. That might be easiest if they were all in the village office, and then that way you could have like your MC or your ask them the questions that way. You'd have to make sure all the candidates were comfortable with coming into the office. I think that might technologically be easiest if you were going to go to live questions. But I'm going to pass it to Naomi now.
So I think it's good to have live questions, but I want to guard against people who ask questions after they give a lecture. And so I think it's a really good idea.
Live questions, but no lecture. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
say that in the regs that there's 1 minute for ask questions.
And even then, it's really hard to control. So I say either, I don't know. I know not everybody's comfortable with the chat version, the chat option. Can they email their question in? And by the way, I'd like to give some kudos to people who email their questions in advance, but not everyone is as gauged as others. But last minute questions are good, but I don't like to encourage them, considering that some people take their time to email them in advance. So all of those things have to be weighed. But live questions where somebody is given the microphone is a little tough when you want to control the time.
That's a good point. And, we could specify that the questions are limited to 1 minute and that, that there's a strict limit. And then, of course, the timekeeper would have to basically zap somebody, maybe even in mid-question, give them the 15-second warning and say, wrap up your question. So there's a way to manage that.
Remember, the answers have to be no more than 1 or 2 minutes. So I don't know if I want to give a person who's asking the question a full minute.
So I see it maybe slightly differently in the sense that, like, I understand why we don't want to turn the candidate forum into a forum for residents to, lecture. But I also think that there's a value to residents being able to air concerns, ask them as questions. I like the idea of having a time limit on the question. But I think that other people will benefit. Other residents have the potential to benefit from hearing residents air their thoughts as part of the questioning process. So I'd be hesitant to go only to advance or written things in a chat that, I think some spontaneity, to the extent that the forum and the technology will allow, is actually beneficial to, the democratic process. But
so do you give people an incentive not to send in their questions in advance?
Well, one way we handled that in the past was to actually say that, please send your, invite questions, welcome questions in advance. And we could say this year that we'll take 2 questions in advance that were submitted in advance and 1 live question. We used to alternate 1 live, one in advance, 1 live, 1 in advance. We can change the ratio so that people's odds of actually getting their question asked would be better if they sent it in advance. We could say up front, in our notices about, the forum that, we'll take 2 advanced questions for every 1 live question. And so thanks, it's really helpful if you submit your questions in advance. And that could give us not only a list of 20 questions in advance, but would still allow us to do maybe 10 live. Does that sound like a good compromise, maybe?
You could try it, but I don't know if it's going to be enough of a disincentive for people to submit their questions in advance, but it could be a good experiment.
Yeah, this is democracy at the grassroots. And I guess I tend to come down on the side of allowing at least some live questions. Maybe the first 10 questions we ask are from the list that came in advance, and then we go to live questions, and we can decide how we want to do that. The issue here at the moment is just a document issue, which is, could we say, as we say in number 3 on our standard procedure form for the forum, and can ask live questions. This forum doesn't say how many live questions or at what point they'll be asked or what sequence, but it just allows us to go to live questions. And so, Paul, I haven't heard from you yet. Do you have a feeling on this? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. And John, welcome. I see you just joined us.
Marty, can you hear me?
Hi, John. I can hear you. Thank you for coming in and being here tonight. We just started going through the first document, the procedure for the election forum. And the question we're discussing is how and whether to allow voters to ask live questions at some point during the forum.
Well,
So Paul and
I have no problem with,
Yeah?
you just discussed, either 1 or 2, whatever, written or a couple quite live questions at the meeting. I think that's fine. I mean, we don't need to drag it on. But anyway, that's my
it's a 2-hour forum. Okay, so you'd be okay with asking at least some live questions. Paul, you want to weigh in on this? Unmute yourself, please. You're still muted, Paul.
in trouble too. We talked a few minutes ago.
Can you unmute yourself, Paul? You're still on mute. Nope, still on mute. Any other thoughts while we're waiting for Paul?
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome, Paul. Thank you.
I've lost Zoom altogether, but anyhow, I can catch on to you now, but I'm one behind, so I'm sorry. I had a terrible time trying to get
Okay,
on.
we've all had technical difficulties at this meeting. Hopefully next meeting will be better. And we always do have the option as a committee of getting together at the village office and having the residents come in by Zoom. So that's something we could think about down the road a little bit. Don't need to decide that tonight. But Paul, the question on the table is, do we ask some live questions during the Zoom? In other words, open up the mic to somebody who's on the Zoom and just let them ask what they want, provided they keep their questions to like 1 minute.
Well,
are you okay with that, or would you?
Well, I'd be concerned about the time because people start talking
Yeah.
and for 3 to 5 minutes apiece, and that would be my major concern. If you could cut them off, just tell them that we give you 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and we're going to cut you off.
1 minute.
I'm going to have to do that because they're going to talk longer. But I
Yeah,
think
we'll have to be really diligent about.
That's a lot
I
of
think there's a
pressure
way
on
to
the
do that.
moderator. That's a lot of pressure on the moderator.
But yeah,
It's a timekeeper really that has to really be the enforcer there, the moderator too. But
The
it's not
timekeeper.
just the moderator.
Yeah, the timekeeper.
The timekeeper can basically say, 15 seconds, you're going to get cut off in 15 seconds, please wrap up. And then the moderator basically flags, the cutoff so that people really know that we give people a minute. Now, what that will actually turn out to in real life is probably 1.5 minutes for the question because people will finish. But we can be pretty firm about that.
if you had some kind of a bell,
Paul, say again?
I say if you had a bell or something that you hit the bell and say, okay, you're off. In other words, give them. But
we can ring a bell. The timekeeper can set off an alarm. I mean, there are lots of ways to be the timekeeper. Typically, what we've done is had the timekeeper hold up a sign that says, like, a red warning sign, 15 seconds, wrap it up. But ringing a bell, of course, people will be coming in on Zoom, so we can actually, mute them after 1.5 minutes.
Well, that's true.
At most, give them a minute.
But
So,
in
in that sense, we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that sound like, should we try it? Let's see how it works.
Yeah, let's see how it works.
Okay. Okay.
Going to be the moderator.
Yes, Michael. Michael, you got your hand up?
Yes, on this point, this last year, which was my first, of course, candidate forum moderating or staffing and hosting the Zoom meeting for it, I found a add-on to the Zoom meeting that does an automatic countdown. So it's a clock that, if there was a minute to answer a question, I could hit start the clock and it would just automatically start at a minute and would count down. And then at 10 seconds left, it would ding, or you could set it up different ways. So there's features that you can do that on Zoom. I'm happy to do that again for you all this year as well.
Also, Michael, I had a question.
sounds-
Was it 90 minutes or 2 hours to forum? I'm trying to find.
I don't remember. Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't remember.
It was 90. I can tell you, it was 90 minutes last year. Traditionally, it was 2 hours.
Okay.
And I think 2 hours allows more questions. It's more inclusive and doesn't seem to me that much more burdensome.
It
Michael, if you're
also
willing to
depends
do
on how
2
many people
hours
you have
opposed to
running.
That's right. And if you have,
Last year we had three.
5 people running, 2 hours gives you like 10 to 12 questions. If you
Mm.
have 3 people running, then 2 hours gives you more questions.
Right.
And if you have 6 or 8 people running, I think the most we've ever had was 7 one year. Obviously it's fewer questions. And the past practice in VMA was, not the last couple of years, but prior to that, was to let the forum go a little longer. If there were people, sort of standing in line at the village office waiting to ask questions. I mean, we did a couple 2.5-hour forums, but those were in person live, not on Zoom. And I think, 2 hours is probably going to be enough, but let's see. I mean, the committee could be open to making it, at the discretion of the moderator. If there are a couple people who still want to ask questions, I have no objection to having go a little longer. Katie, you've been a candidate. I've been a candidate. How's it feel, being on this? It feels like a long forum, right?
Guys, when you're on the hot seat, but it's true. If you have a big candidate pool, if you have 5, 6 people running, it's more variety of questions and more time to hear from the candidates. So yeah, I mean, the 90 to 2 hours, 90 minutes to 2 hours sounds in the neighborhood, right to me. Yeah.
I
Go ahead, Paul.
think people could live with 2 hours on something like
Yeah.
this. This is important.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose it's hypothetical. We always do a second forum. There's nothing to prohibit that. If there were questions stacked up at the end of 2 hours, we could probably do a second one, but that would be up to the candidates and the committee to decide. Nothing in this procedure prohibits that. What the procedure actually says is the forum may run up to 2 hours at the moderator's discretion. Does that sound like flexible enough? Yeah? And we don't have to require that it be 2 hours. I just think we should allow at least 2 hours.
I would say
Everybody good with that language?
that's a max.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
the 2 hours max. Okay, John, what you gonna say something?
Hours is max. You're right. We may have to provide another 2-hour forum, depending on how things are going with the questions, et cetera, but I think that's just an option, another 2-hour forum, but certainly 2-hour forum. I think. Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, leave it open. It doesn't prohibit it. Yep. So basically keep this one around 2 hours. And if we need to do a second forum for some reason, we have the option of doing that. Okay, are we good on that? Anyone have some final comments on that forum procedure?
Good on that.
Sorry, who?
Naomi, say again?
Good on that.
Good on it. Okay. Okay, John, anything else?
Not
Say
right
again,
now.
John?
Fine,
Okay.
good, thank you. I didn't
We
recognize.
have a draft forum. Didn't recognize what, John?
Voice that agreed was one of our members, or was that Kate? It's okay.
I didn't hear what you said, John.
I was. Can you hear me okay now?
Now, yes.
Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
fine.
we can hear
yeah.
you.
Okay, good. I'm even having
Okay.
phone trouble tonight. I don't know
All
what
right.
the hell's going on. All right. I'm listening. Go
We're
ahead.
all
Let's move
having
on,
tech
Marty.
problems.
Yep.
We're okay. All right, so we have a tentative agreement on a draft form procedure. Thank you, everyone. What I will do is go ahead with Nomi's help and put together the markup for our next meeting to actually approve at the next meeting. Okay?
Sounds good.
So moving right along. Okay, moving right along to the next item, which is the instructions for the mail vote contractor. This is another one pager. And the plan here is to get through all the short ones as best we can tonight and save some of the longer ones for next time. So the instructions to the contractor are one page, and John, you had the lead on looking these over. This is the one that tells the contractor to rotate the candidates' names on the ballot, include the bank lines for the write-in votes, assign the security numbers, provide postage paid ballot return envelopes, and all this sort of, just technical instructions. So what did you think looking at that, John? Did you have anything that you thought we needed to consider there?
I don't have a problem. I think the format's good. I have a couple questions. Is the 23 contract for the 23 elections, is this an ongoing contract, or do we have to renegotiate it every year? This might be a question for Michael. I didn't see that. Do we have to renegotiate it every election cycle, Michael? Did he hear that?
Michael, you want to take that? Michael, can you answer that?
Is this about the contract for the
Electech.
service provider?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it an ongoing contract, or just for one individual, election cycle, and it has to be renegotiated?
Yeah, exactly. It's for the 1 year, and it's renegotiated. And we have a good relationship with Electech, and that's the one we've been using for a number of years. And I actually met them at a professional development conference this year, and had a good meeting with them as well. So we feel good about them, but yes, it will need to be renegotiated.
Yeah. No, from everything I read and from their performance in the 23 election, I think they did fine. One of the things that I think has been thrown around is that we may need to ask them to provide more time, and obviously that would, for this coming election cycle, and obviously we would, have to pay them more money. I think the committee should be in agreement with that, but we'll have to probably fine tune that to the extent that we need them for this upcoming election cycle. Would you agree, Marty, and the committee?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that is an option for Michael that Michael and I talked about is if it's over, we don't need.
We can't hear you,
if it's under 10,000. But if it's over 10,000, we might be able to split it. In fact, I know we could into two subcontracts. One would be the mailing of the ballot packets and
Marty?
all that, and the second one would be the vote counting session. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
We can't hear you. You're kind of fading out, for me at least.
Okay, let me try again. Michael, you and I had talked about if the contract this year with Eclectic does go over 10,000, that we might need to split it into two subcontracts.
Correct.
And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. With the first contract, covering the vote mailing, ballot mailing, and all that piece, and the second one could cover the vote counting session.
It wouldn't
So
really
there
be
is a way to do that.
It wouldn't really be two contracts. The problem is here is if it goes over $10,000, which are very close to, we have to go to a competitive bidding process, which means we have to post it. There's only one or two. I think Electech's the only one that bids for a lot of these small municipalities in the southern part of Montgomery County anyways. So that's a big hassle that you don't want to have to go through unless you're going to have a good, competitive bidding process. So we're trying to keep it under $10,000. I think what we can do is if their bid comes back at 11,000 or something, a lot of the costs are actually pass-through costs, like the postage will all be us, the printing will all be us. So we can say, actually it's $10,000, but that extra $1,000 we're going to pay for directly or something like that. So we can cross that bridge when we get there. And the sooner we get there, the better that will be for us.
That's certainly a thought, but
that's a great idea. John, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good idea where we could pick up the postage. I mean, we're going to pay for it anyway, correct?
Correct,
either
yep.
through the contractor or we're going to pay it forward directly. That's a great, Michael, that's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. How about that?
There's
Okay.
lots of strategies. We're all collaborating with the other municipalities to learn all these tricks. And actually, a lot of the municipalities, and Katie's on the phone, so I'll say this, a lot of the other municipalities are actually raising that threshold in their charters to $15,000 or $20,000, because with inflation, more and more of these contracts are over the $10,000 amount, which is causing all sorts of delays and issues when you have to, put them out to a competitive bidding process. So just a future.
I
I
think
mean,
this
can
committee would probably support you on that, Michael, if you propose. Katie, do you want to weigh in? Is the council willing to consider raising the threshold to 15 grand?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but we could certainly take that up. I mean, I'm understanding of that. It's like a COLA. So yeah, I mean, I would be supportive of that. Of course, can't speak for everybody else, but we could raise that at a meeting. Yes.
And then that's probably for future years. And yeah, I do think I can get some support for that. But for now, I think we have workarounds, and where it's probably not going to be an issue for this year's committee. So we're probably fine.
I mean, we have the funds, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Michael, let Katie know when you want Katie and the rest of the council to actually take up that increase in the threshold.
I'm
And
on
I
it.
think you could probably count on the support of the election committee, because we don't want to have to pitch pennies on something as important as the right to vote. So am I speaking? Is there anyone who would object on the committee who would object to Michael having a 15,000 K threshold instead of the current 10?
I would approve that. I would approve that.
I would approve that 15,000. Certainly. This is John. I would approve it. Yep.
Okay.
This is Paul.
Okay, Michael.
Not that we have the
shoulder.
deciding vote on it, but I just want to make sure the committee's, Jen, any questions about that?
No, I mean, as a citizen, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I don't think it's within our writ, but
Yeah, we could express an opinion, not to have to vote on that decision.
yes.
Well,
And
all right. Well,
Naomi?
when it comes to that, I might call on you all for some support. But for now, I think we're fine. And the sooner, actually, do we have a timeline for when we would have that I forget what it is, the instructions and everything for the election service provider, so that I can go to them and ask them for what their estimate would be?
Yep, hopefully November 1st.
Okay.
Great.
Hopefully November 1st. Well, actually,
that's
we're
early
marking, we're marking up the docs tonight. And our next meeting is November 1st, and we'll be able to vote at least on these shorter pieces. And the two pieces that would be in the contract with the with Electech, or whoever the provider is, are this instructions piece, which is 1 page, and has sort of the details of it, and the vote counting procedures piece, which I think is 2 or 3 pages only. And those would probably be attachments to your contract, because they spell out what we expect the provider to do. So I'm thinking that we can get through both of those tonight, do our markup tonight on both of those documents, and then have them officially, the committee vote on them on the 1st at our next meeting, and then you're good to go. At that meeting also, we should also give you a formal recommendation from the committee to continue with Electech. That's not on our agenda tonight, but that would be on the agenda for November 1st, that we would make a formal recommendation to either continue with Electech or not.
Well, I can just reach out to them, and let's wait to see what their proposal is before you support them or don't support them. So I can get a proposal from them back, and then you all can consider that.
That would be perfect, Michael. And November 1st meeting is where we would be making that vote, having that vote.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
on whether or not to continue with it. That'd be great. So I'm putting a note here that Michael,
Yep. Michael, I understand you say that you could get a proposal back by them, from them by November 1st meeting.
I can't speak. Well, no, first I need the forms for you all, the scope of work and those documents. And then I can go to them and get them to get a proposal back. I can't speak to how fast they would be able to turn a proposal around once we send them the scope of work and items. But we have a good working relationship with our Nikki at Electech, and I have her cell phone number and stuff. So
Sure.
we're definitely, I'm sure she can get us a proposal pretty quick.
Sounds
okay,
good.
and our following meeting after the 1st is on November 13th. So that would give Electric, 10 working days basically to get back to us with a proposal, and we can make that decision at the meeting on the 13th. I'll put the note on that. Okay, mechanics. Elections are so much about mechanics. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, John. Now let's go to the actual instructions for the election service provider. The contractor, the one-page draft.
Oh, Marty, you're fading out. We can't hear you.
Okay, I need to stay close to the screen here. Okay, we have this one-page document. It's called Draft Instructions for the Election Service Contractor. It starts out with voter roll. The committee will verify the voter roll before sending it to the mail vote service contractor in early April. Has everybody got that document in front of them?
Yep.
Everybody got it? Okay. John, did you have any changes you recommended that we make in any of the text of this
No.
instruction page?
No, I don't. I think the footprint that was used in the past, I think is fine. I mean, that's my feelings on it. Okay.
That sounds great. Anybody else got any suggested changes on it?
Just a question. It says the committee may instruct the contractor to mail early ballot packets to voters who will be out of the country during the general mailing. What's the process for doing that? And have we done that in the past? Is there any downside to
Yes.
doing that? It just seems arbitrary on its face, but speaking as somebody who's been out of the country for previous elections, I appreciate the reality that mail-in ballots take extra time. Anyway, I'm just interested in understanding kind of the mechanics around
Yeah.
that.
Good question. Glad to answer that. We've had a couple people who are routinely in Italy in late April, early May, and asked if they could get their ballots before they left. The committee has the last 2 years done that. Basically told Eclectic, the packet is ready basically in mid-April before we have the form, although the Eclectic or whoever can't mail it till after the form. So they've got it sitting there waiting for our go, on the form has been held, now you can mail it out. But they've got it ready to go. And the way that mechanics work on that is that the committee, us, would email Eclectic instructions to mail early ballots. It's sort of like a version of absentee ballots almost, to mail early ballots to the following, and last year it was 2 people, but to the following, say 3 or 4 or 5 people, before they leave town, because they won't be here in the country during the actual bulk mailing or mass mailing. And Eclectic had no trouble doing that at all. It was basically an email, packet was ready to go. They had assigned the, security numbers to each voter already. And so those 2 people, just got early ballots. I think it's a nice way to be more inclusive. And so, and it was not a technically difficult thing to do. So what do y'all think? Include that?
Yep.
Jen, did that
Marty,
answer your question?
I have a general question. Okay, is it incumbent on the resident to tell the committee that, or the village manager, that they're going to be out of town during this period of time, or do we have to solicit them somehow?
Yeah.
By to see if they're going to respond to that? Whose responsibility?
Good question. We can do both things. It's the voter's responsibility to notify the committee. Michael doesn't get involved in this piece. It's the committee that emails the contractor to send early ballots. The voters need to contact us. And in the last couple of years, those 2 voters did do that. They said, called the committee and said, hey, how can we get a ballot? We're going to be out of the country. And I think it's a nice service to a lot of residents. I don't think there'll be 10 or 20 people who need early ballots. It's only ever been 2 in the past, but it could be 4 or 5, this year. One of the things the committee can do is just put it in one of our notices that if you are going to be out of the country, in late April or the first week of May, and need an early ballot, let us know. But it's incumbent on the voter to let us know. It's like requesting an absentee ballot at the county level. This is requesting an early ballot at the village level. And like I said, it's not something that involves a whole lot of mechanics. So, Jen, did I answer your question too?
Yeah, I would recommend that we affirmatively educate people that this type of service or this is available to them. By in the documents that we publish or some other special notice. I'm definitely not
I
opposed
think
to
that's a
it.
fine
but-
idea. Okay, that sounds great. Anybody disagree with that? That we would go ahead and put out notices that says, by the way, this is available. Let us know by date X if you need an early ballot. I think it's very parallel to letting people know they can ask for an absentee ballot.
I think it's good.
I
think,
certainly agree to that. Yeah, absolutely, Marty. I agree to that.
Marty, I think it's a good idea
Okay,
to
John?
go ahead and do that, but I think a brief one pager on the process, A, B, C, D, E would be helpful to have Michael, maybe have it and provide it to people so that they have it in writing. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, the committee would write it, but Michael would publicize it and post it for us and all of that. We could even put it in the election info packet that we send out to people in March.
If
So
somebody
it'd be in writing in the packet they get.
if somebody called Michael and said, Michael, I'm going to be out of the
Yeah.
country, and Michael said, well, I have the procedures right here. I'll send it to you or drop by the office. Yeah, I think that saves some arguments or whatever confusion. So anyhow, maybe we should prepare something like that.
Absolutely. I think we have agreement on that. Anyone disagree?
Not at all. Maybe
Naomi?
we could even post it on the village bulletin board.
Good idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that getting election information out every way possible is really a good idea.
Yep.
And the procedures should be just simple and clear. So I think we have consensus on that. Anybody opposed? Okay. The only other thing that I could think of that we might want to consider on this instructions for the election contractor is a note at the bottom, again, that would give the committee in the future some flexibility, which would simply be like a one sentence that says the committee may specify additional instructions to the contractor as warranted. So that's, again, just a flexibility item on there. What do y'all think about that? Just to sort of not lock this in if somebody needs to. Like I'll give you an example of where that came in. Last year's committee had a problem when the subcontractor to Eclectic didn't put the return postage on the ballot return envelopes. Remember that? Yeah. And Katie, you were offering people stamps. I remember that was so nice of you. That was a case where last year's committee had to go back to Eclectic and actually give them some additional instructions about what they were going to do, and had talked to Eclectic. And I think, Michael, you were involved in that too, to sort of like figure out, what's the fastest way to handle that situation. But, stuff happens. And so I think it might be a good idea to add a one sentence at the bottom here that says, the committee is authorized to specify such other instructions as may be required, or something like that. Anyone opposed to that?
I have no problem with that. I mean, they may come back and want a change order, but who knows?
Change orders on contracts are not unknown, and the folks at Eclectic have been pretty flexible about responding when there's been a glitch like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea, Marty.
Okay,
I have no problem with that, really, at all.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Me too.
All right. So, John and Naomi, anybody else? Jen, you got any thoughts on that piece?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, I'm putting a note here. Add flex sentence at end to give some flexibility to the committee to specify additional instructions as needed, or something like that. Okay, anything else on the markup on the instructions for the contractor? No? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you all. And again, I can put those changes in and get the markup to you. The third document I'd like to do tonight is the vote counting procedures. And Paul, that was the one that I think you had the lead on, and it's sort of complicated to read. It seems like repetitive to me, but what was your take on it?
My take was that it might be confusing to some people, and that I simplify it, or make an effort to simplify it, and get it to the committee for the next meeting. if we have the time, because I agree with you that it could be confusing to some people. I didn't think it was that well written, tell you the truth. But I'm willing to take a draft at it and get it out to people, and we can you can accept it or reject it the next meeting.
I think that's exactly the right way to handle this one.
Yep. Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree. I don't think it's well written, and it is a little confusing, but here again, Paul, I think you could do a great job of simplifying it, and make it a little bit easier for us to understand, or whoever else is involved. Okay.
Okay.
You got
Anyone
the lead. You got
else
the
have
lead,
comments
Paul.
on that?
Yeah.
And thank you, Paul, for doing that. I had two ideas on that, Paul, from when I sort of plowed through it. I had to read it twice myself.
Could you email
and one of them was that that we ought to again put in something that builds in some flexibility here to allow the election committee to, if circumstances warrant, to delay the vote counting session by up to 5 days or 7 days. And I can think of a number of scenarios where they might want to do that. If there's some kind of problem at the eclectic office, or if we all come down with COVID, or any number of things, or if there are 25 ballots still in process in the mail on our designated vote counting session day, I think that we have an obligation, in my view at least, to count all valid ballots. And I think it's pretty easy to just say that the election committee may defer the vote counting session by up to 7 days. That would be my suggestion, if circumstances warrant. Any feedback on that? What do you all think about that idea?
I think
Jen, I'm looking at you.
I think we would need to be crystal clear about what that delaying vote counting may or may not mean for whether it changes the deadlines for the votes actually arriving, if that makes sense. And there's nothing that tells me it will change it, but I think we would just have to be clear, that nothing we do on the counting has any bearing on what a valid vote actually is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That goes to an issue that Katie raised at the vote counting last year, which is related to this. And last year there were last year they had the vote counting session on the day after the ballot due date. And during that day after, before the actual vote counting started, 4 more ballots came in. And last year's regs said that the ballots had to be in by the ballot due date, regardless of when the vote counting session took place. And Katie, you raised an issue which I thought was really important at the time, which is we've got these 4 people who voted, and the ballots are in hand. They were in the eclectic office. They could have been counted, and you were the one who said we should count all ballots that arrive prior to the vote counting session. That rather than a hard and fast ballot due date, that the effective ballot due date is the vote counting session date. And if you put the vote counting session on the same day as the ballot due date, then there's no problem. Anything that comes after that day can't be counted. Simple, right? But if there's any kind of a even 24-hour gap between the due date and the voting counting session, then you get the problem we had last year with 4 people being disqualified whose votes could have in fact been counted. And my take on it is that we should be more inclusive, and I think that was the point you made so clearly during that vote counting session, Katie yourself, saying inclusive. So do you want to address this, Katie, for a minute? Because this goes to your question, Jen, about what ballots get counted. Katie, you have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, you summarized it perfectly. That's exactly what happened. The candidates will have a chance, as will you, to watch Electech start the voting process, the vote count. And they, were giving their report of how many had come in by, I guess it was 5 p.m. the day before. And then they said between 5 p.m. the previous day and right then and there were 4 more that came in. And I made a challenge that I thought that they should be counted if they hadn't started the machines yet and they were there. Of course, other people will argue a deadline is a deadline. You'll have that counter argument, and if you didn't make it by the deadline. But I mean, I don't know. I think they looked at the timestamp on the stamp, and I think that was their determined. Marty, do you recall? I think that's what they determined, because they said last year's committee, to mail by a certain date, and it had been mailed after that date. So I guess that's why they challenged it. But I mean, I am of the idea that if it's there and you haven't started the machines, but I might be alone on that.
I don't think you're alone on that. Jen, does that?
No,
Jen, would you like to speak to that?
Respect 100% that bias toward, and I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean biasing our support for
erring on the side of inclusion,
participation in the democratic process. If we have the votes, then it's just a matter of being transparent about it, and that the deadline is whatever, or the deadline is the vote counting, and if the vote counting is normally the deadline plus 12 hours or whatever it is, and if there's some force majeure reason why delaying vote counting means happens, then the committee in our effort to ensure the fullest possible participation in the democratic process will allow ballots that may have come in after the deadline to be counted. I mean, I think the best thing we can do is tell the village that that's where our bias is, and so that we don't have a deadline that we say is a hard deadline, and then we wind up doing something that people don't know we would do, if that makes sense.
This vote counting is 5 pages long, as most of you know. The procedure we have here. Should we simplify it into a shorter version, or I'm not sure what to do with it, to tell you the truth. It is so long and and detailed. What's the committee think about?
I'll work with you on that, Paul.
Okay.
Paul, I'll give you a hand with that, because I looked at it too and had the same reaction you did.
It is just voluminous.
So don't worry, not going to leave this just on you. I'll help you with that. And,
okay.
We'll run a draft by everybody on the committee too before our next meeting, so that everybody can look at it and help us catch anything that we might miss.
Right.
So this is a group process all the way. And I think, unless we have any objections, I think we have an agreement on the committee here that we will, in fact, give future committees the flexibility to, change the vote counting session date if, like you say, force majeure, if something happens that we need to do that. And to specify that the ballots in hand in time for the vote counting will be counted. And I think it's actually pretty easy to have language that says that. And Jen, I certainly second your point about being real clear. We can tell the villagers that to be sure your ballot will be counted, please make sure it arrives by May 20th or 21st or 22nd. And yet in the regs say, if we, for some reason need to delay the vote counting session, we will count all ballots that are received in time to be counted. I actually looked at some of the state regs on that, and there are a couple of states where there were lawsuits on exactly this issue. I think Pennsylvania was one of them, where ballots came in because the post office screwed up. Ballots came in late, and there was a court case that said that the Board of Elections should count them. And I think it was actually the court case said 15 days after the date that we were supposed to be due, the Board of Elections should count anything that came in within 15 days because the post office had screwed up so badly. That was the longest delay. And I think that we should probably say 5 or 7 days on this, maybe 7 at the most. If our committee needs to move something, I would think 7 days would be enough to address whatever issue there was. But I did look up, there was actually a case on this that came out the same place we did. So that should make us feel like we're on the right track here. Because the judge in the election case said yeah, count the ballots that come in, you know, if they're in hand, basically, we should count them. So anything else on this before we go? Nomi, do you want to chime in on this one or not? Nomi? Okay. Well, the other four of us, I think, are in agreement. Yes? Anyone
Yep.
say no? Okay. So I think we've now done 3 of the 5 we have to do. And the only other thing I wanted to do tonight before we go to the next question is the actual contract. Michael, thanks again for all the info on the contract earlier. I was looking at the contract. I don't know if you all took a look at it. It's only 2 pages. But I had a question, Michael, about the 6th and 7th paragraph there. You looking at it with me, Michael? On the actual contract, it says Electech Election Services, Inc., election service contract. It's a 23 contract you sent us. Paragraphs numbered 6 and 7. I thought was neither of those really applied to us. Can you maybe talk about that for just a minute?
Let me catch up here and pull up that document.
The contract. Does everybody have their copy of the contract? It was in the packet.
I
I'm
do. You
thinking-
mean about voting machines, the 6th paragraph? Electech warrants that voting machines shall be delivered undamaged.
Yeah, that paragraph and the one after it seemed to me not relevant. And Michael, maybe we could just strike them. This is
Yeah,
a question. We don't need
I
to
think
say
that contract was their template document. And there's not, the voting machines, they actually hang on. The voting machines are in their facility in New Jersey. So I think that was just, we probably would strike that, unless they have a problem with that. I guess they do deliver, and we actually wrote into the contract that they would deliver a safe box.
The box,
That right, the Dropbox. Yeah, the Dropbox should be specified in here. And the stuff that they have should not be specified in here. We need the Dropbox specified in here. So yeah, that's a good note.
I guess they have that because don't they also, Michael, don't they also do on the spot voting too with machines? Because I remember at the MML conference, they were there and you could vote with the touch screen. I think that's what they're referring to. So that must be their document, but you could certainly strike that because it doesn't really apply.
And we already have a head start on last year because this was kind of a last minute. They were still trying to decide how they were going to do it, and they were still discussing of whether they were going to do in person and virtual, or there was nothing was really decided this early last year. So the contract kind of came before some of those decisions.
You all are already ahead of the game.
You are.
We try, Michael. Thank you.
Well, and actually, it's a big thing to the council for getting a good 5 people appointed to this committee early this year. So that's good.
Okay, so I mean, those are the only 2 changes I had on the draft contract. And Michael, we would attach to the contract the vote counting procedures when they're ready and the instructions to the vendor when that's ready, which will be early November. So, and you're going to get a proposed proposal from them, before our meeting on the 13th in November. Okay.
Hopefully,
we should have
I can't promise their
1st.
turnaround in November, but I will try.
Okay. Anything else on the actual election service contract? Okay, rock and roll, team, rock and roll. All right. I would like to suggest that we hold the 2 long ones for next time. I went through the overall procedures, the rules and procedures from last year, and there are a couple things. Obviously, taking out the dates that say 2023 is one thing I did. I marked it up to do that, and there are some ways to simplify it. It's got some duplication in it too. For example, toward the end of the overall procedures main doc, it talks about election procedures that are already in the vote counting and the instructions. So that's a whole duplicate section that I think we can probably, just attach the documents that go directly to those issues instead of saying it twice. So I will give you all a markup of that between now and the next meeting. And again, it should shorten it somewhat without actually changing any of the procedures, but simply clarifying and simplifying like Paul and I will do on the vote counting process. you know, every government ends up with these documents that are written by like successive committees over the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, they end up convoluted like this, and we can simplify this. So if there are no objections, I'll go ahead and do a markup on that piece for next time. Agreed?
Yep.
Anyone opposed?
Yep.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
and we'll make sure it's consistent. Anyone else?
I'm here.
The only actual, go ahead. Who's John? Go ahead.
No, I have no problem. Everything, that's good. Let's move on with that one, okay?
Okay.
Yep.
And the only actual structural change that I see in that, besides just cleaning it up, is that they had put, this is just not just last year, but the last couple of years, these 2 dates where the nominations had to come in one date and then a week later the candidate materials had to come in. You know, the candidate filing date is usually just one date. And I know that in the community comments last year about the election regs and the year before, a number of people said having a different nomination date than a candidate filing date didn't make sense. It was confusing. Nomi was one of the people who raised that point, I remember, last year. And so the only actual change in procedure that I see here is to just have one filing date, just to simplify that. And I would like the committee to talk about that tonight, so I know how to do the markup. All right. Anyone have any thoughts on just having one single filing date? John, Paul?
No, I
Jen?
think one filing date should be, and you know, get it, if they're gonna do it, let's do it. One filing date would be,
That makes sense, I think, the one date.
yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Paul, you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Jen, what do you think?
Yeah. It's totally fine.
Okay. Okay. You know, other than that, it's just a cleanup job. It's not actually changing any of the procedures. So, with your permission, I will go ahead and do that. And then the last piece we have is the voter verification process. And on that one, I know we need to table that partly because it's 9:14 p.m. So we'll do that one next time. And I have some materials to share with you. I did a little bit of a deep dive with Boris, you know, the director of the staff at the County Board of Elections. And I've got the voter roll maintenance regs from him for the county and the state. And also have a piece that I sent to council back during the summer about how to incorporate this new definition of qualified voter, which needs to go in a couple different places. So that's a process that's going to take longer. And I think doing those 2 items at the next meeting, we plan to have the final votes on the 3 or 4 we've done tonight, but we'll have the main discussion on the voter verification process and the overall ordinance next time. Does that sound sensible to people? Are we okay with that plan? All
Yes.
opposed?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, good. Okay, that's the plan of action. We have only a couple more quick things on our agenda tonight. And one of them is the question of, let's see, let me find my notes here. I'm your organized leader. I am trying to be organized here. I'm doing my best. So, the question about
Kudos.
hiring of a at least part-time, short-term,
We can't hear
you
you.
know, okay. The last item I meant a 9 o'clock point here. Discussion reads.
Still can't hear you.
Details for hiring a short-term contractor to help verify the voter roll this year. Katie, what's your take on that? I mean, is that something we're going to be able to ask the council for tomorrow night?
I don't know about tomorrow night. Tomorrow is already a packed agenda. I certainly, you know, I hearing the arguments, and I would be interested. I'm supportive. Again, can't speak for everybody else, but I mean, I think it's definitely worth in your committee reports, because each committee will have time that is on the agenda. Each committee will give an update. Whether you choose to do it tomorrow night, it's up to you. Or definitely by the November meeting to discuss that for the, you know, pitch that to the council.
Yeah, well, we've had a formal committee vote to do that at our very first meeting. That was very strong committee vote. Everybody immediately said aye, that we need to hire somebody to help us do that. And certainly we're not going to burden Michael or Aaron with verifying the voter roll. It's number one, it's not appropriate. Number two, they don't have time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big job this year because of that change in the definition. One of the things we're going to need to do, Katie, is go through and screen out all the non-resident owners. Right now, we don't know who's owners and who's renters, which means we have to look at, all 330 houses are on the thing. So it's going to be a big clerical job. And I think personally that a smart paralegal, could do it. And a voter roll verification firm certainly could do it. But I don't know what that would cost. And I don't have any cost estimates. I think we just need to go ahead from the council tomorrow to look into how this would be. And again, I would ask Michael to help do that. Does anybody on the committee have experience in writing job descriptions? I have some, but Jen, Paul, Nomi?
Not a lot.
Not this information, really. I mean, what's required. I don't know. I maybe this is something that Michael could go to, to Electech and see what they come up with. It's possible.
Yeah, see if they have suggestions about who they know of who helps verify voter rolls. And the other person we could ask is Ron Bolt, because I know other towns have had the same issue of verifying their voter roll, and there are professionals out there who do this. I just don't know what they cost and haven't had time to really dig into that. Michael, can you come back on?
I think, yeah, Michael, I mean, you can bring this to the council's attention during your committee report when you suggest, Michael, that be the ideal time to put the bug in their ear.
Right.
Yeah,
Michael's gonna need-
it's
Michael's
the
need two
council.
assistants
I serve at the pleasure of the council, so it's the council that would direct me to go out and hire an additional person. So.
Okay, but you could do the job description if we gave you the basic gist of it. And
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Then I have a clear idea now how to proceed and what to put in the committee report for tomorrow night. So that's great. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Michael. 9:05 says on our agenda, comments, questions, suggestions from the residents. We don't have residents here, just us. So, Katie, you want to say anything in the residents' comment section?
You're doing an unbelievable job. This is an all-star team. I'm really impressed with what you've accomplished just in 2 meetings. So, I'm looking forward to your report tomorrow night because you have so much to report to the council.
Yes.
So, great job. That's all I got.
Okay.
All from me.
Well, thank you. We
Marty,
weren't
I have
fishing
one.
for compliments, but John, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, I have one comment before we close for tonight. Is that I would think that the committee should look at the time. I don't think we should. I think we should extend or start our meeting no later than 7:30 and wrap it up early. I mean, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. We're now into 9:30, whatever. But I mean, it's just a suggestion. Why can't we start it at 7:30 or at that time? What does the committee think about
That
the
would
time?
work for me.
For who? You?
Naomi, Paul, Jen, can you do 7:30 on the 1st of November? That's our next meeting.
7:30 is fine with me, and that's when most meetings start anyhow.
Okay.
I think 7:30 really works for me, quite honestly, because we always know that we're going to run over a little bit anyway, and my dog likes to go for a walk in the evening.
And I think
Before-
Eddie deserves his walk on time, John. I like your dog, little Eddie. Jen,
Okay.
7:30 on the 1st work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of prefer the later just because of family considerations. I have an 11-year-old who won't be home from soccer till 7:30. Which means that
I mean, if it's
then
really inconvenient, I mean, it's 8 o'clock it would work. I just don't want to inconvenience a family member. Seriously, Jen. Okay, I mean, here again, I didn't realize that you have a family issue. Or maybe some of the other members do as well. I don't know.
I guess what I would say is 7:30 would work for me on other days. Wednesday's a little bit challenging. And maybe we could go to 7:45 and then I could get her squared away when she gets in from soccer, but then I'm not like totally juggling, so if I try to meet everybody halfway, would that be okay?
Either
Sounds
one.
good to me, Jen.
Whatever the committee thinks, seriously, I just raised that, I just thought 8 o'clock was a little late to start a meeting, but that's my thoughts. I think Paul agreed, but here again, if you have family issues, Jen, then I respect that and certainly would,
Either one works for me, 7:30 or 7:45 or 8. I can do it, do any.
yeah. Yes, I mean,
Nomi?
15 minutes is fine.
Nomi?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nomi, go ahead. What's your thought?
yeah, I prefer 7:45 or 8 o'clock, given my dinner hour at home.
So should we
Well, let's
try
say
7:45?
Yes.
And then, okay, Thank you,
let's try and
guys.
see how it works. Okay. Seriously. Okay.
thank you.
That's great. And again, I appreciate the fact that we're all friends and we can talk about the fact that we have 11-year-olds and dogs to walk and dinner times. And I mean, we're a team here, let's take good care of each other.
And you're volunteers, you have lives, so yes.
Yeah, we have lives. Well put. And Katie, thank you as always for your flexibility. You are just terrifically wonderful to be so available for us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And Michael has done a great job. He has established a couple more Zoom accounts for us because this is our first week where we had every night we've had a meeting. So we have 5 different committees. So eventually I might be, recording and unmuting in Michael's place. So he's already got that accomplished. So it shouldn't be a problem to have multiple meetings at once. So
Artie, I have a question.
Multiple thanks to you, Michael. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, for Michael. Michael, both John and I had trouble with the Zoom link tonight. So I don't know if there's anything more that can be done, but I had a terrible time getting on, and I think John did too.
I still couldn't get on. That's why I'm talking on the phone. Quite honestly.
Oh, okay.
But it may be my computer. Who knows? Whatever. But having said that, I'll see if I can't fine tune it to see if we can't get it on in the future. Okay.
Because
So did anyone else have issues with the link besides for you two?
I had no trouble.
Okay, so and just so you all know, and I try to say this, what I'm doing now is when you give me the agenda, I put the Zoom link to access from your computer at the bottom of that agenda before I post it on the website. So that link is available on the committee webpage on the village's website. So everyone can access it, and that's that meets the public meeting requirement as well, that everyone has access to this meeting. Now Zoom has 2 different options. There's one that's where you can actually download the app on your computer and you can access that way, or you can just access it directly through a browser like Chrome or something like that, Chrome or Firefox or something. So it could be that you need to update the app, or if you've gone the app route, you have to keep that up to date. But I kind of just recommend, and I don't know how everyone else does it, but I kind of recommend just going to the browser. That tends to be easier.
Yeah.
But
and does the Zoom address change each time we post a meeting, or do we have a home for that? Because I know at work I have a weekly meeting and it's just always the same Zoom address.
Yeah, they are changing a little bit because we're juggling having multiple meetings and who's going to be the host and which account that's created on. So it is going to juggle a little bit. Eventually, I would like to get to the point of just having standing meetings.
Yeah.
That are the same link every single time. But yeah. So maybe before next meeting, remind me, Paul. I'll make sure to send you all the Zoom link and the phone number as well to make sure you all have access to it from multiple ways.
That would be helpful. As well.
The afternoon of the day would be helpful. November 1, that afternoon, if you send a Zoom link and all that. Okay.
Sure, I'll try to remember that. I'm making a note right now.
It seems
I'll
like,
make
it
a
seems
note
like to
too,
me,
Michael.
that we, yeah, Michael, it seems like that on prior meetings or whatever, all I had to do is just hit the Zoom meeting and it just, the app went. But,
And what device are you on?
pardon me?
What device are you clicking the link on?
Well, I would just click on a link and, you know, and, I would enter a meeting, and previously, even on the, council meetings or whatever, you know, but
Yeah.
tonight, you just sent me the data, and, you know, I tried typing it in, it just didn't go, you know, so I'm not sure what I was doing. You know, I'm somewhat of a dinosaur anyway, okay, when it comes to computers.
All right, well, happy to help if I can. I'll try
Yeah.
to send you all the specific link where you can just click it from your computer and it should just open right up. So I don't know
Oh,
beyond that, but happy to
that would be marvelous.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you,
Thank you,
Michael.
Paul and John, for raising that issue, and Michael, thank you for responding to it. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
And
All right, what else we
our
got, Marty?
task assignments are to go over. Got just task assignments, and they're real simple. I think we've got the first 3 documents done. And I'll send around the markups. So the assignment is to look at the voting doc, the vote counting doc that Paul's going to be working on, and we'll also be looking. He's going to give us a simplified version of that. And Jen, we're going to next time take up the voter roll verification process. In the meantime, I will send everybody the additional info I have on how you verify a voter roll to update it. And then the final doc is the one that I've got the lead on, which is the markup on the overall main ordinance, which needs to just be simplified and get the duplication taken out and the dates changed. So you're going to get some documents during the week between now and November 1st. And our homework assignment for all of us is the same, which is, again, look it all over, and we'll have final votes on these docs to the extent we can, at least on 3 or 4 of them next week or next time on the 1st. And we'll hopefully finish them all up by November 8th or November 5th, 13th, right, is our next meeting. So, Paul, I just want to check. Paul, your fire board meeting is on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, right?
Second Wednesday. Second
Say
Wednesday.
again? I couldn't hear you.
Fire board is the second Wednesday of every month.
The second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was the 3rd.
So
We've
it'd be-
tentatively scheduled our next council committee meeting for the 13th.
Really?
Is that going to work for you?
Yeah.
I thought you said our meeting was
November
November
1st
1st.
and November 13th. The
Okay.
next one is the
November
1st, I'm sorry. And
And
then
the
November
13th.
13th.
November 8th is the fire board meeting. Yeah.
That's what I thought. So we want to skip the 8th and go with the November 1st and November 13th, just to confirm our next 2 meetings. Everybody got that?
Okay, got it.
November 1st and November 13th. Got it? Got it. All right, we need a motion to adjourn from this loyal team here. You guys are the best.
Okay, got it.
Move to adjourn?
Yep.
Okay, John moves. Anyone want a second?
Good.
I
Let's do it.
second.
All right, second.
Okay, Nomi seconds. All in
Alright.
favor of adjourning at 9:30 exactly, please say aye.
Aye. And Marty,
Aye.
I'll be in
Alright.
touch, Marty. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Hugs and thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.